Hello, welcome to a special emergency episode of the Square Base Show. I'm not joined by my co-host, Mr. Val Heffelfinger, today. He is away. He actually is so excited about the news I'm about to talk about. He was barfing with excitement. Couldn't come on the show, but he will obviously be on the next episode of Square Base. And I think, obviously, in the future, you're going to get some shows either from me or from him when neither of us are able to be there because there's going to be such a deluge of information about the upcoming Old World and about Old World when it launches. And leaks are a constant part of that. Now, I'm obviously streaming right now on The Honest Wargamer, where I stream every day. And me and the Twitch chat have just been having a conversation about the Tomb King leaks, which is what we're about to talk about. So this is the emergency podcast. The flares have been lit. And you've called me for aid, basically. So we'll dive straight in, which is important. Now, as you can see, the Tomb King's box, or the packaging for the Tomb King's box is about to be released for the Old World, has been leaked from the factory floor. And this is stunningly exciting for a couple of reasons. We'll start at the top. Number one, and most importantly, this means this is out very soon. Me and Val have been saying for a while that this is coming out in January, and I still think that this is true. I probably am even going to argue for early January. I think that's going to be an important part. So that's very, very soon. The contents of the box we're going to cover in this video. We're going to talk about some other elements as well. And I want to know what everyone's thoughts and feelings are about this box in comments, likes, and all these other things. I've been listening to the Twitch chat for a while, and they've got lots of thoughts, which I'm going to cover in this video. First thing I want to say right now is I love the box. I think the box looks great. There has been recently a lot of conversation about putting artwork on the front of boxes, and I think this is an amazingly good shout for a couple of reasons. I did a thread about this on Twitter recently. I think art is a real selling point for Warhammer generally, I think for most things, but Warhammer especially. And also it gets to be a little bit more evocative than maybe the miniatures will do, especially if they're really old miniatures, because some of these are very, very old miniatures. So here you can see the front cover being art. I like this, and I hope that every box that we see in the future, even an individual box of Skeleton Warriors or, Peasantry for Tomb Kings or whatever, is going to have the artwork on the front, because that would mean that we might get a whole slew of new art that's going to be commissioned for the Old World. And I personally just think that's exciting. I'd like to know what everyone else's thoughts are about this artwork. The dragon features heavily, and I'm not really surprised the dragon features heavily because he's the only new miniature in this box, which is pretty fun. There's also something else that's very gossip worthy, which is Warhammer the Old World is definitely the brand, but it says Fantasy Battles in the World of Legend. Now, it used to be called the World That Was. That's how Games Workshop referred to it. But Fantasy Battles in the World of Legend is interesting. And we did, at the most recent Black Library kind of showcase, they were meant to show a book off for the World of Legend, and they didn't. Then there was a screenshot leak of a book from Black Library in the World of Legend. So the Old World, interestingly, also referred to as the World of Legend. There's been some speculation online, and I think it's definitely worth talking about, that this might lead to more of an expansion of what the Old World might be in the future, or maybe even other iterations that we might see might be in the World of Legend. So I kind of like that. I like this. I think that's really fun. Love the box. I think it's great. It's also a very deep box, which is cool. It's blue. I'm interested to see if the Bretonian one's going to be red or if the main color for the Old World stuff is going to be blue. That would make sense. All the Age of Sigmar stuff is red at the minute. So they normally, through editions, they change what the box color is. But blue for everyone. Is that just going to be Tomb Kings that are blue? I'm not sure. But I like the box. I want to know what everyone else thinks of the box. Oh, I should also probably bring up the fact, before we look at the contents of the box, that it's not a versus box. I think that's a bit that has shocked a lot of people. It's not Tomb Kings versus Bretonians. A lot of people in the chat, and I think generally most people are more positive about this. I personally am more positive about this. I would rather pick up a box for, let's say, Orcs and Goblins or Dwarfs than I would Orcs and Goblins versus Dwarfs, because I want all of the minis for me from that box pretty much. But I do understand why dual boxes are really cool, help you and your friend get into it, but this way they get to deliver a lot of minis for a single faction in one box, which I think is a positive as well. What do I think the launch of Old World is going to be like? Well, I think we're going to see a launch box for Tomb Kings and a launch box for Bretonia. I think we're going to see a core rule book separate to be bought, separate to those two as well. then I think we're going to see 2 books, a book with the army list for the bad guys and a book with the army list for the good guys. And you can see all those on like the Warhammer community post for which one is which. Then I think we're going to see a Tomb King book and a Bretonnian book. I don't think the Tomb King book and Bretonnian book are going to be like what we see in Age of Sigmar and 40k, where you would have like an index or a less fleshed out army book, and then you would end up with the full-throated army book that you get when you get a codex. Instead, I think what you're going to get in the 2 initial books with good guys and bad guys is you're going to get the full way to play Tomb Kings, the full way to play Warriors of Chaos, the full way to play Orcs and Goblins, and then the book that they release for Orcs and Goblins, or the book that they release for Tomb Kings, is going to be a new way to play those armies. So I wouldn't even think of it as an expansion, although I guess it is. I would think of it more as like, probably it will be something along the lines of, this will be the way to run all chariots. And then the other version, or the second version, will be, this is the way to do all constructs, as an example. With Bretonnians, it might be as simple as, this is the way to go a lot more Grail Knight and kind of like Lord heavy, and this is the way to go more peasant heavy. But it might introduce some new characters, maybe, but I think that's not going to be the case. So it means 5 books at launch. The core rule book, a book for Tomb King specifically, a book for Bretonnians specifically, and then 2 other books with all of the army lists in. And as well as the additional PDFs for the Renegade factions. So those are the factions that they've said that they're not going to support through version 1 of the old world. And I think that's what we're going to see. Super simple. Okay, yeah, PDFs at launch as well. And those, again, I want to be really clear, will be as well written and as full as the army list that we see inside of the book. Now, a lot of people say that's a lot of hopium. No, it'll just be like some like barely touched thing. I don't think so. I think you'll be able to pick up a Renegade faction, and obviously until January comes out, don't purchase stuff based on this information or my opinion, but I think you'll be able to play a Renegade faction from launch right until the end of the edition. I think it won't change. I don't think that Tomb King is going to get so many more special rules that the PDF faction won't feel like a real faction. I don't think that's going to be the case. So that's kind of the launch of the whole thing. Anyway, let's go see what's inside of this box, shall we? This is where I think the community is going to become a little bit sticky. I think people have got a bone to pick with this box. Thank you. Val's not here, so I'm really trying to bring up the energy just to kind of like be the other side of that, because that's what he'd be doing. He'd be like, now, Robbo, if you look, let me do my Val impression for everyone. Now, Robbo, you'll see there aren't a lot of new models in here, but that's okay. Some people want to get these, you see? That's my terrible impression. Okay, yes, there are 93 minis in here. It's been brought up in the chat, and I think it's worth talking about. That when people write things like 93 minis, I don't think that that's the selling point, but I think it's a way of justifying why you buy these boxes. Like Legion Imperialis recently, it's like it's got 260 minis. I'm like, not really, it's got 260 tiny minis. But people use that as a quote to talk about value. What is the price point of this box going to be? All of the guesses in the comments in this YouTube video immediately. My guess, £140 RRP. People have said I'm crazy. They think it's going to be £200. I actually have no idea on this. I'm much more certain on the book release schedule and what armies will look like. The price, I've got zero idea. Zero idea. I think that they are going to be making these minis cheaper so that you can buy more of them. That's what I think, because they've already made their money on them. But we'll guess in the future. Anyway, it's got the big bone dragon in here. So this is how you get the big bone dragon. Will he be sold separately? I'm not sure. There's a rule book and there's some whippy sticks, Return of the Whippy Sticks. Obviously, just buy a tape measure. Don't be a child. And then some templates. Then it's got 91 other old-ass minis, which is pretty rough, to be honest. There are 40 skeleton warriors. There are 32 bow warriors. There are 16 cavalry. There are 3 chariots. And then you've got the crocodon, 1 foot hero in there as well. So I think there's 2 things to say about this. I think some people who were previously really excited about getting into Tomb Kings couldn't get them as a kid, or even if they did get them when they were younger, or even when they were, older, but earlier in time, in the past. That's what I meant, earlier in time, in the past. they ended up, they want to pick these models back up. They want to give them the paint job that they've always wanted to do. I think that's interesting. I think for the old world community, sorry, not the old world community, the Total War community, who may be eventually about to transition over, and if you are one of the old Total War people and you are interested in Tomb Kings and you listen to this video, I think you're going to have a lot of like mental dissonance or cognitive dissonance, because you're going to apply, the art style that you've seen for those minis, and you're going to apply it to these minis, and you're going to basically see that anyway. There's a lot of abstraction with seeing minis as is. Please see like the artwork for Space Marines in the 80s and the actual minis in the 80s, not the same. So I mean, kind of, but not. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people are going to be very excited about the minis. I think a lot of people are also saying, and I think very fairly as well, that the market leader, Games Workshop, the market leader for miniatures in the whole world, shouldn't be reselling minis that are 20 years old. I think that's the other point as well. The other point I think people will make, which I think is also quite fair, is why wouldn't they commit to sculpting a whole bunch of minis? There's going to be a lot of comments in the comments saying things like, "No, Rob, it actually costs a lot to do that." I'm here to tell you, no, chatter. I know for a fact that that's not true. So you could produce a bunch of these, and it would showcase a little bit more commitment to the old world as a project itself. If we were to see even more resculpts, like the Skeleton Warriors is a bit yikes that we're seeing those out, but I know people are going to be excited about those, so I don't want to yuck your yum. If you're excited about those Skeleton Warriors or any of these old Tomb Kings, then I'm excited for you, and I hope you love those minis and you have a great time playing with them or painting them, whatever you want to do. I think it would also be fair to say that I personally probably would not pick up this box because it's got 92 old miniatures in, which is not something that's of interest to me personally, and probably the same will be true for Bretonians. That said, if those Foot Knights are available, oh baby. So I think there's going to be a conversation online, and I think a lot of people online are going to be, your feelings are going to be disconnected. Some people are going to be like, yikes, and some people are going to be like, I'm really excited. And I think maybe just take the time to be respectful of each other's opinions, because I think they're all right. If you're excited about these minis, that's great. But I think it's also fair to say that these minis definitely could be updated and should be updated in the future, which is interesting as well. And yes, other companies do make better miniatures. I'm just going to bring up Lost Kingdom. Here's a good example of some sculpts that you can print or have 3D printed for you by people like on Etsy. And here you can see some pretty cool Tomb King warriors here available. That's just from them alone. There are lots more companies out there that do produce amazing sculpts. So if you are a Total War person and you're like, actually, I really want to play Warhammer Fantasy Battle, but I don't like the sculpts at all because they're old, what can I do? You can get 3D sculpts. And everyone who is a sensible person is going to be very complimentary about your really cool looking minis, and they're not going to be upset you didn't buy the minis from the company. I think it's also fair to say that buying these minis to support the game so it doesn't die is a bit of a misnomer. You're going to hear as a conversation that's going to be kicking around. I'm going to try and avoid most of that for now, but I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of thoughts about that, and that's going to be a consistent thought around the old world, especially with the release of all the old minis. Anyway, I'm excited. I'm not particularly excited for this box, mainly because I'm excited about the rules and the mechanics and putting the minis on the table and playing the game. I think the mechanics look really, really exciting, and I think Tomb Kings were never going to be my vibe anyway, because it is these older models. And with Bretonia, I've already seen a bunch of sculpts I'd like to 3D print, which aren't the old Grail Knights, as an example. But I want to know what everyone thinks. This is very exciting. There's loads of cool stuff, and it means it's out soon. This is where it gets crazy fun. This game is going to be out soon. In like 4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks, this game is going to start being available to like see people play games, battles. You're going to see all this amazing stuff. This is super exciting. So I would like to know what everyone's feelings are, because I think this is going to create a lot of conversation around why we're hype, why we're not hype, if it's going to put people off, if it's not going to put people off. My personal opinion, I think these boxes are going to sell out. That's my personal opinion. Why and should they are great questions. Yeah, especially with lots of old miniatures in, which I think is going to be a sticking point for lots of people. But I think this is going to sell out, and I think people are going to have a great time. Is there a danger of them underproducing and these being of only limited stock? I think very, very possible. I don't really know. Also, a couple of other things. The box will be very deep because the old sprues are really inefficiently repackaged. Me and Val did talk about that on the Squarebase show. He said maybe they'll retool them. If they were being very clever, they would retool even if they were being clever, they'd just make new minis. But they would repackage them, retool them so that they could make them with smaller sprues, so that they could fit them into smaller boxes. Because the most expensive thing for us as an end consumer is a huge box, because we're normally going to be now paying for shipping and storage versus the actual contents inside of the box. So pretty interesting times. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I really went for it for 15 minutes and just bowed out at the end. Anyway, it looks cool. And also, I'm a little sad that it's old models. I think as someone who's excited about playing the old world, which I am, playing in events, playing games against my friends, and getting into the lore, and a game that I already liked previously kind of coming back, which is exciting. I think I also really have to marry that with the absolutely fair statements being made by people that the market leaders shouldn't be selling us old minis, right? And those two feelings are difficult to, join up at the end because one makes a group of people, quite rightly point out that I'm like being foolhardy and liking something that's, they clearly have put minimal effort into, and then I'm also don't want to upset the people who are excited about the project. So I'm in two places because I actually feel both those two things at the same time, right? So, let me know what you think. I hope you've enjoyed the video. First video we put out on the YouTube without Val, so on the Squarebase YouTube. But I've been making content on this for 6 years, so hopefully you like it. Let me know. Thanks for listening, and obviously do please like, subscribe. Thank you to everyone on the Patreon.